Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Threezero 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review video. Now today we are going to be taking a look at their first Stranger Things release, being the Demogorgon. Now I wouldn't have thought this would be the figure that would kickstart the line, but I'm super glad that it is at the same time. I cannot wait to get this guy out here. Now I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is of course in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and an awesome reward system. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here of course we have the box art, and with this guy being the first in the line, it kind of sets the precedent of what to expect going forward. We do have an image of the figure himself on the front of the box, Stranger Things done in a gorgeous vibrant red down below, and Netflix up in the corner. Those same two logos are on the side. On the back though, we have another image of the figure, this time with the closed mouth head sculpt, if this can be considered a mouth. Flipping open the front cover, we do reveal the Demogorgon, plus his name done in a very old school stylized font. On the other side, we've got an up-close and personal image of the open mouth head sculpt. Now, we're not necessarily here to dissect the box, we're more here to look at the figure inside. Ever since Threezero announced that they picked up the license for Stranger Things, I have been super excited. For me, Stranger Things is one of Netflix's hallmark properties, so now that we are getting officially licensed figures from it, I am very keen to see where this line goes. But starting off with this absolute beast, first in-hand impressions are very positive. Something like this is right up Threezero's alley. Now we do of course have one tray up on top and another down below. What we are going to do now though is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Here we have all the parts and pieces. Now starting off with the display base first, I'm actually surprised to see this here. Threezero usually avoid giving us bases wherever possible. I don't know if this is exclusive to the Demogorgon or if the rest of the figures in the line will also get this base, but I'm kind of hoping that they do. It is simple, it's relatively flat, it's a circle, Stranger Things etched into the front done in a metallic red, and then a transparent flight pole up on top, 3 different ratcheted joints, and then a waist grabber. Now you do actually have to screw that piece in place, so at the very least it's nice and secure. You do get 2 different head sculpts for Demogorgon. The first of which is the closed mouth sculpt. You can see where the various flaps have come together, so his mouth is closed up. There is a ton of texture on top, plus some green vein work and some washes in the crevices. And then over the top of that, a glossy, wet look. The same thing can be said for the outside of this one, but it's the inside that they've detailed to the nines. You've got the glossy, wet flesh, it's nice and red, you've got all these teeth, and they aren't sharp. This is a rubbery plastic, so you don't have to worry about pricking yourself when you are handling this head sculpt. But for the most part, it's gruesome yet bang on to what I was expecting for a Demogorgon. You also get 2 extra hands, one that's kind of half closed and the other with his thumb pointing slightly down, if you can even call that his thumb, but they are slightly different to the ones he comes wearing. What we are going to do now though is get the Demogorgon himself out here and take a closer look. Here we have it, standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that, and yeah, that is the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. I am super happy with how this guy turned out. Now, that's not saying he's 100% perfect, because he isn't. You'll have probably already noticed the display base here. Why is it here? because he simply won't stand without it. I don't blame the figure for that, I blame the design from Netflix. This creature design is a masterclass in how to make something purely to exist in CGI, because if you made him practically, you would have come to the same conclusion that I have. He's impossible to stand. He doesn't even have any heels on the back of his feet. They are so small, they cannot support his enormous size. And neither can the flight pole on the base. It's just the normal 1/6 scale flight pole that you'd expect from a normal 1/6 scale figure. But that's not quite what we have in the box. Now, is it, Threezero? Y'all should have definitely upscaled the flight pole because the figure is massive. But with all of that unpleasantness out of the way, the figure looks great. He poses as you would expect him to. He's got seamless joints, he's got traditional joints, and he's painted to the nines. I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. Something like this is right up Threezero's alley. They have nailed the look and feel of the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. What we are going to do now, though, is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. Here we have it, up close and personal. Now in just a second we will switch out the head sculpt for the closed mouth version, because I'm quite curious to see what that looks like on the body. He of course comes out of the box wearing this one, and it works very nicely. It's not too big, it's not too small, it fits in proportion to the rest of the body based off what we saw in Stranger Things. This guy looks awesome. I'm also pleased to report that the glossy finish and all of the sculpted in texture of the head sculpt matches perfectly with the body from head to toe. Now I have seen some people mention the exposed joints at certain sections. I think, this is of course my opinion, feel free to disagree, but I think they've struck a perfect balance between seamless and jointed limbs. Now Hot Toys Venom did the exact same thing. There are certain sections, like down here at the legs, where if you pull it down you will expose the joint inside. My advice is to make sure once you've dialed in your pose that you push everything back up into place so it hides the joints a little bit better. And trust me, when this guy is standing there in your display, this is not what your eye is going to be drawn to. It's probably going to be that. Now let's talk about the body, because there is a lot to discuss. I have never owned any of the Hot Toys Alien figures, but I wouldn't be surprised if they looked and felt a lot like this guy does. You can see a ton of sculpted in ligaments and texture on the surface. It does have some muscle detailing and what I assume would be bones that kind of looks like a ribcage. I don't know what I'm talking about. I know nothing of alien/creature physiology. If you know a little bit more than I do, let me know in the comments below. Now he does have some sections, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it, where there are some green veins. They are dotted around the body, and it does a nice job of having a subtle pop of colour on an otherwise very brown figure. I also love the massive oversized arms. It looks exactly like he did in the show, and then his legs are also very long. Now he does have some seamless parts, as you would expect, because you would think that his arm would bend, and it totally can. That means there is a lot of rubber here. His entire arm is made of rubber. His entire upper torso, once again, rubber. Even down here on the thighs, where it doesn't really need to be, it's also rubber. So if you are living in a hot or humid climate and you've had rubber figures deteriorate on you before, maybe this is one that you have to be a little bit more careful with. But I'm really happy with how he looks and feels. It doesn't look or feel cheap at all. It's a nice, thick, sturdy feeling rubber. even down here, because you do have a hidden seamless joint for the second knee, it's all a nice consistent finish. But for those of you wondering what he looks like with the second head sculpt, here we have it. Now, I straight up prefer the other head sculpt. It definitely is the more eye-catching of the two, with the big wide open mouth, the glossy red lining, and the millions of teeth dotted around it. This one, though, is still accurate to the show. And without those protrusions that hang down, you can see a lot more of the detail sculpted into the neck. And there is a lot to look at. It also sits slightly lower on said neck, so it cups a little bit more on the inside. Something I didn't mention earlier is that there are a ton of washes in the crevices, and also some highlights on the surface. Down below here for his feet, they are also fully detailed on the underside, with some very big sharp looking toenails on the top. But overall, so far, I'm pretty happy with Demogorgon. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the Demogorgon alongside the Hot Toys Daredevil. Now you may be thinking, Justin, have you gone mad? Why is Daredevil here? Well, because he's based off a Netflix property and none of the Stranger Things kids have been released yet. This is the best that I could come up with. Nevertheless, he gives you a rough idea as to how this Demogorgon will scale alongside your other 1/6 scale figures. And he's huge. He's far bigger than a standard release. So that means when we do eventually get the Stranger Things kids, they are going to be significantly shorter than Demogorgon. I'm pretty sure that height is fairly accurate. But either way, I love how big and imposing this figure is. Just going over articulation. Now bear in mind this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I am willing to go. Now starting off with the head sculpt, it does look forward and back, although do be careful as the neck tends to get caught on the outside of the head sculpt. Simply tuck it back under and then you'll maximize your range of motion. Swivel and then a ton of pivot side to side. The arms do go up on very clicky ratchets. They will go forward and back. There is a butterfly style joint at the shoulder, which also hinges up and down. You do have a ratcheted single bend at the elbow that also incorporates a swivel underneath the rubber outer layer. You do have a hinge and swivel joint for the wrist peg. The torso can crunch forward and back as you would expect. I thought there would be a ratcheted joint inside here, but unfortunately it's just held in place by friction. Swivel and then pivot side to side. Now the legs can be dropped down so you get a little bit more range. As you can see, this side is now sitting a little bit lower. They will go forward more than the full way. That is some crazy range. They will go out to about there, although if you do push it down slightly further, they do go out a little bit further on ratchets. You don't have a ton of swivel underneath this rubbery section. Most of your swivel will come down here from your first knee joint, I guess, because this one also bends. The top one bends on a ratcheted joint to about there, and once again you get some swivel. The second one also bends on a ratchet. As you can hear, it's a very sturdy joint. Lastly, down here for the ankle, you have a ratcheted hinge and swivel. Just wrapping up on the Threezero Demogorgon from Stranger Things. Going into this, I was hoping this figure would kickstart this line with a bang. I mean, what a figure to start off a Stranger Things line with. The Demogorgon was something I thought would come much later after they'd produced the main characters. But Threezero said, no, we're starting with the big bad, and they nailed it. This is exactly what I was expecting for a 1/6 scale Demogorgon. Is he perfect? No, I don't think he is. Number one, the display base is too small. The flight pole doesn't even reach his waist, even when you have him bent down. and the clamp doesn't wrap all of the way around either. And he can't stand without it, so it's kind of an essential piece. I would have also loved to have ratchet joints in his torso so you could crunch him over even further, but even with those complaints, he's still awesome. He captures the look of the creature from Stranger Things perfectly. He looks menacing, but also kinda disgusting at the same time, with the wet, glossy, slimy look all over the body. I'm also a huge fan of the seamless joints blended in with just the traditional joints as well. It's a perfect solution to how to create a creature like this in action figure format, but still make it look suitably realistic. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is of course in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and an awesome reward system. While you are down there, check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.